Y'all, first and foremost, give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and his son, Hamashiach, who some call Yahushua, Yeshua, Yahushua, Yehoshua, Yashayah. We mostly know as Jesus Christ. A brief lesson here, brief discussion here, not even really a lesson. Shouts out to Priest Hakah. He did a lesson on the Intertestamental Period. And he's pretty much just reviewing what another brother had information he put up, and some of the dates and so forth. But very, very important information that we need to understand. And a lot of us within One West Israelism do not understand it. We haven't read the Apocrypha. We ain't reading it. And I'm going to show you that you ain't reading it. I'm going to prove you ain't reading it by this information that we're going to go over. And that Priest Hakah went over. And it went over here. A lot of it went over his head. But let me let this thing play.
This constant warring between the Seleucids of the north and the Ptolemaics of the south leave Judah devastated, as it's caught in the middle of the struggle. One ruler of the north, Antiochus Epiphanes, is especially bad. After failing a second attack on Egypt and being fended off by the meddling Roman navy, he returns to Jerusalem and causes immense suffering. In 167, he desecrates the temple.
And he don't really go too much into what really happened, but this brother was in his feelings. Once he lost to Egypt, he was in his feelings, took it out on Judah, long story short.
Sacrificing a pig on the altar. He outlaws the Torah, and all Jewish practices are forbidden. Following the Jewish law, circumcision and even observing a Sabbath day of rest are punished with swift execution.
So he's going through, and he himself doesn't understand that this is how Israelites became Gentiles.
Now we see our brother just said that's how Israelites became Gentiles because of what this brother has done. Pompey has done by sacrificing that pig and so forth, and making us and getting us to the point where and outlawing any of our practices, as far as keeping the Sabbath, going to the temple, any of our little keeping feast days, all that. Like, he eliminated that stuff. Like, he didn't want none of us out here doing this, almost to a point of want everybody to be one nation, and the Greeks kind of was trying to assimilate us into something like that. But no, y'all ain't doing none of y'all practices. All right, and Deacon and Priest Hakah saying, well, hey, this is how we became Gentiles, because, and this is the narrative for most Israelite camps. This is the narrative right here, is how we stopped circumcising, we stopped keeping the Sabbath, and we became Gentiles. Now, who's here at this particular time? It's only Jews. All right, it's only Jews here. The Northern Kingdom is not here. They're not going through this Greek captivity. They still scattered in Assyria or wherever they done been scattered to, wherever you want to put them. Some, most gonna say they in America. I even seen Hassad and Chief Priest say that Paul went to America to teach him. I dare y'all to say I'm lying. I got that clipped up. Paul went to America, y'all. Anyway, but the Northern Kingdom is not here. And if they are here, they're called Jews. Everyone's called Jews. This is Judea. Everyone's called Jews. All right, we went over that verse too. We went over the Zondervan and how the Zondervan define Jews.
But he is breaking it down. I was looking for more direct scripture on, was there a prophet? Why was there not a prophet? Why was the Most High not speaking? But this is all a part of that as well. What was going on during this time, even outside of theology, even outside of, the spiritual aspect of it, the historicity can only be found. It can be found in Daniel, prophesied rather in Daniel, but it's happening in real time in the Apocrypha, in the Maccabees, in the book of Sirach, Ecclesiasticus. These were books that were all written and composed during this intertestamental period. I hope everybody understands that.
Look what he's saying too. All the Apocrypha was written during this particular time. All of the Apocrypha was written during this particular time. Everything in the Apocrypha was written during the intertestamental period. Ezra wasn't written in 5th, 6th century. Ezra was written in the 2nd century BC.
So we'll go through the Apocrypha.
That's why it's called Ezra. That's why it's written in Greek and Latin. And for my scholars, you can look into that. When was Latin written? When we start writing in Latin? Some of Ezra is written in Latin. Why is 2nd Ezra written in Latin?
We'll see what was actually happening in the intertestamental period in real time. Let's continue.
Like has happened
Excuse my mic, y'all.
often in history, this tyranny and these atrocities were met with resistance. In 166, the Maccabean revolt began. Judith,
look at this now. 167, he desecrates the temple, and we're not allowed to keep any other Sabbaths and do the uncircumcision and so forth. All right. 166, a year later, maybe not even a year later, probably wasn't even a whole year. Maccabean revolt against AE. Epiphanes. We were only persecuted for a year. All right. We only faced that persecution for a year. We were only uncircumcising people for a year before we bucked back. And y'all saying y'all reading this. You saying you reading the Feast of Dedication. Y'all reading the story. How don't you know this? Why are you sitting up here saying, most Israelites are saying that we were uncircumcised. We stopped getting circumcised and we stopped keeping the Sabbath and we became Greeks, all of us. We just magically became Gentiles. But they'll never tell you the date. They'll never tell you that persecution only lasted a year before we fall back. So now you're saying that we became Gentiles in a year. That we done lost all of our culture. We done forgot who we are in a year. But then we fighting after that. So we still just lost. And now Paul got to go and tell these people, hey, you really an Israelite. Come on, y'all. Y'all making this stuff up. And it's happening to you because you're not reading. You lazy. You lazy, man. You ain't in this thing for the right reasons. You letting these folk deceive you.
Hammer Maccabeus, seriously, his name was that cool, took a small guerrilla revolt from a sporadic resistance to a full-fledged revolution that granted them a peace deal in 165 and restored.
They got a peace deal in 165 because of Judas Maccabees. They fought. They got a peace deal. So from 66 to 67 to 65, 2.5 years, 2 years. This thing is over with. We got back control. 2 years. You saying we done lost our identity in our land in 2 years. Man, y'all done made all of this stuff up, man. Y'all done made all. Y'all be like, why are you doing all these videos? Because, bro, like, really, this right here collapses the One West Israelism. This just destroys One West Israelism. And you talking about, especially if you talking about the Northern Kingdom, is who Paul is going to, and they done lost their identity. This is over with. And Deacon is not responding. Look how he got his lips tucked. He ain't even responding with all of this information, man. It's 2 years. And then we celebrate this. We celebrate the fact that we made this this treaty or whatever and got our freedom. Well, I don't think we made a treaty with them, but we got our freedom and fought these jokers back. We ended up making a treaty with Rome, but And we have the Feast of Dedication where we're getting back to the temple. All these same people, everybody who was in 67, most of these people still alive. And then we saying from 67 to 65, people weren't getting circumcised. Okay, let's say that. Who are those people? Those have to be newborns. Those had to be newborns. Okay, newborns between 67 and 65 weren't circumcised. We done made a narrative that when we go into the New Testament and it's saying the uncircumcision, we trying to make that these Israelites who didn't get circumcised in 67 and 65. And it lasted them 2 years. You have this whole thing about circumcising these people that's coming in. But those ain't Israelites. And I'm gonna show you.
Religious liberty and quasi-independence to Judah. The holiday Hanukkah celebrates this victory. Don't tread on the hammer. Eventually, the Seleucids gained some control back over Jerusalem, but left it largely to govern itself. During this time, two camps emerged in Judah, the Hasidics and the Hellenizers. Hasidics wanted to retain historic Judaism. They were the forerunners of the Pharisees.
If you've been watching this channel and watching some of this stuff we've been going over, I told you the Pharisees really the ones that wanted us to get back to the law. The Sadducees wanted us to be Hellenized, wanted us to be more like the Greeks, and wanted us to have these. They lived up there. They were making the money. And not only that, the Sadducees were controlling the temple. You see all these folks exchanging money and doing all of this stuff. That when Christ come in there, he all mad. Y'all gotta connect all this stuff, man. And if you don't know, you don't even know where the Pharisees and the Sadducees came from. You don't know why there's synagogues all over the place, because the Pharisees wanted everybody to know the law. That's why he said you crossing land and sea. The Pharisees were converting everybody. They weren't talking about no Israel only.
Yes, the Pharisees that we know from the New Testament. Hellenizers, on the other hand, they wanted Judaism to progress and work to merge it with Greek thought and life. They were the forerunners of the Sadducees.
Philo.
Yes, the Sadducees you know from the New Testament. Weakened by fracturing and...
So in this intertestamental period, you see the origins of the Pharisees and the Sadducees that you see in the New Testament. That is important history for you to know if you call yourself a Hebrew Israelite.
Constant war, the Greek Empire fell piece by piece to the new kid on the block, Rome. In 63...
And look, we went from 65 to 63. You still missing 100 years. We went over this stuff, man. We went over every Hasmonean king. Because see, after this 165, you had the Hasmonean dynasty. That's where that comes into. All right, and that's where the Pharisees, Sadducees, all that stuff end up coming into. We end up fighting each other, and then Rome ended up having to get involved. You know what I'm saying? Joker went out there and reached out to Rome. Please help us, help me get back the kingdom. But I went through all of this with the I think it's like a 4-part series on the Hasmonean dynasty. All right, and this is why I'm telling y'all this is so important. Let me talk also about the circumcision part. All right. We said it was 2 years when people weren't getting circumcised. It was 2 years, right? Let's go to First Maccabees. Let's go to First Maccabees, chapter 2. Chapter 2. And this is what I'm saying. Like, chapter 1, by the time you get to chapter 2, it's over with. That persecution is over. Let me start at First Maccabees 2 and verse 44. It says, so they joined their forces and smote sinful men in their anger and wicked man in their wrath, but the rest fled to the heathen for succor. Then Mattathias and his friends went round about and pulled down the altars, and what children soever they found within the coast of Israel, uncircumcised, those they circumcised vehemently. Those they circumcised immediately. So you can't bring that narrative into the New Testament of this whole dialogue about the uncircumcision and make that Israelites, when Judah Maccabees went through and circumcised all the darn children that he could find within 67 to 65. 2 years. Y'all saying in 2 years, you done lost your identity. You done forgot how to keep the Sabbath. You done forgot. And then there's synagogues all over the place. I gotta make that make sense. You gotta make that make sense. Like I told y'all, the Hasmoneans, they didn't just they defeated Edom and conquered Edom. And he gonna get into that, but he ain't gonna get into the conquering of Edom and so forth. But and how Herod really got in power, he just says that Herod got it from the Rome, which is true, but it's a reason he got it from Rome because of what he did for one of the Hasmonean kings. I forget which one it was, but it was a battle after the queen Salome, her two sons got to fighting each other about who gonna take the throne, and their father Alexandria, it was either Alexandria or John Hakah. I don't know, y'all. Don't make me lie. I had to look back at it, but the Edomites were already conquered at that particular point. And they had already been converted into Judaism or into Jews. And they conspired, and one half of the brothers end up getting I think one of the brothers was named Alexandria, and the other one may have been named Aristobulus. But anyway, one of the brothers, you got locked them up, and one of the brothers said, "Hey man, I can get the kingdom back for you." Some of the Edomites, I can help you get this thing back, and they, they had a little army, and most of the army was, was Edomites, and some of that army went up there and helped him get the kingdom back, and then it still end up being fighting and back and forth and so forth. But you gotta watch that 4-part series there, and or just Google it, man. Just Google it, and you can just fast through, maybe look at some wiki and see how that thing came to naught and how it ushered in the Herodian dynasty, with now the Herodians being, Agrippa and Herod and all them being ruling over Judea. But and how they're half Jews and so forth, and how he married in. Like it's a complex thing, man. I had to go back over it, to really detail it. But that's just me trying to freestyle off the dome. But anyway, you can't bring that narrative into the New Testament that these folks and these folks are uncircumcised. And what does that do? Well, every time it says uncircumcision, you have to put Gentiles there. It's over with. It's over with for one West Israelism. If every time you see uncircumcision, when you see in the dialogue in Acts 15 about the uncircumcision that Paul has been talking to, that Paul has been given over to. Hell, matter of fact, let me pull this up in Galatians 2. And people just throw this stuff, man. It's crazy, the stuff we just sit up here and try to deny. All right, verse Galatians chapter 2 and verse 7 says, "But contrariwise, when they saw that the gospel of the uncircumcision was committed unto me," you have to say that that's Gentile, because Jews weren't uncircumcised. Northern kingdom was not there, and if they were there, they were considered Jews. They'll be considered Jews. They'll be living in Judea, which would make them Jews. And I would say even in the Samaritans, even at that time, the Samaritans weren't under that ruler that did that to us. They didn't go through that. Even the Samaritans, they didn't go through that persecution. That's why when we got back to the Hasmonean dynasty, we got back control. We went after the Samaritans and we destroyed that temple that that everybody want to say, hey man, you know what? We was worshiping at this temple. That temple got destroyed by Jews. We destroyed it, and that's why the beef was there. And he's trying to say, well, he said they really Israel, but Christ said, don't go to the lost sheep. He said, don't go to Samaria, don't go to Gentiles, only go to the lost sheep. I don't like dealing with that either. Verse 7 says, but contrariwise, when they saw that the gospel of the uncircumcision was committed unto me, as the gospel of the circumcision was unto Peter. All right, and brothers will try to dance over this, man. I got the Gentiles, Peter got the darn Israelites. For it wrought effectually in Peter to the apostleship of the circumcision, the same is mighty in me toward the Gentiles. So we see uncircumcision connected to Gentiles. Verse 9, and when James, Cephas, and John, who seemed to be pillars, perceived the grace that was given unto me, they gave to me and Barnabas the right hands of fellowship, that we should go to the heathen and they unto the circumcision. You got uncircumcision connected to Gentiles, connected to heathen, and y'all still saying, man, no, we really that's them Israelites, man. Come on, y'all gotta stop, man. Pray this thing was edifying. Y'all be blessed. Shalom.